Hey everybody, I'm Laura DeCaro of Career Directors International. If you're currently thinking about starting, or actively building a resume writing or career coaching business, I'm so glad you've joined me today. In this show, we share tools, strategy, and mindset tips that lead to your ultimate success without the stress. My guest today is Deborah L. Schuster of The Lettersmith. Hi, Deborah. You're going to get to know Deborah very shortly. But first, I wonder why we have an echo. That's new. Be interested to see in the chat if anyone else is hearing the echo. Are you hearing it, Deborah?
I'm not hearing it. I'm hearing thunder outside here, but I'm not hearing the echo. So
Okay, and I don't
I
get
heard Tallulah in the background.
I know. All right, well, I'll keep going. And anybody who, if you do hear the echo, not that I know what to do about it, let me know in the chat. All right, we are currently streaming on CDI's Facebook page, YouTube channel, and our LinkedIn page. But we have issues with some of the channels not telling us who you are in the chat. So we're not going to ask you to go through the link and give permission. Just please, when you comment in the chat, give me your name, as much full name would be preferred. Let me know who I'm talking to so that we can have a real conversation through chat. And listen, if you don't know me yet, my goal is to become your not so secret superpower. At Career Directors International, we provide everything you need to love and excel at what you do so you can make a difference while earning an exceptional living as a career industry professional. All right, so let me be I like to be all special here, even though we have Deborah here. I'll put up our little caption. We're talking about startup and growth secrets with special guest Deborah L. Schuster of The Lettersmith. It's perfect time for this interview with Deborah because the TORI Awards, the TORI Resume Writing Awards just opened with my show last week where I was talking about the TORIs. And as I mentioned briefly in the event description, after 25 years of success, Deborah joined CDI and reignited her joy in resume writing through creating high-impact resume graphics. And she's had the opportunity to experience other growth in her business through winning TORI Awards and using some of CDI resources, which I'm sure we'll be talking about. So we didn't plan that on purpose, but I was like, oh yay, look, my next guest is a recent multiple TORI winner. So I think she'll have some great advice for you here today. But before I let her share any of it, I just want to mention 3 things I would like you to do. First off, let me know who you are. Say hello in the chat. Tell me again your name so I know who you are. Second, if you have questions, this is your time to ask them of Deborah and I, so please put them in the chat. And third, if you like what you are hearing and want to see more, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, depending on your platform, because we do this every Wednesday at 3:45 Eastern. Okay, so continuing our journey of startup and success secrets. And Deborah has let me know that you can hear Tallulah cough. She is a menace right now. I guess I could have locked her up, but she has literally been quiet. We had the Career Industry Accelerator Club meeting today, and she was silent through the whole thing. So I thought, she's okay. She's calmed down. And now the only way I could put her away is to walk away from the screen. So hopefully she will shut up soon. And we will have some peace and quiet to do this interview. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about Deborah. So hi, Deborah. Welcome. I'm super excited.
Hi, glad to be here, Laura. So glad to be here.
Yes, yeah. So Deborah began her resume writing business, again, The Lettersmith, in the pre-internet days of the mid-1990s. Thanks to all the changes in resumes, job search strategies, and career industries, she hasn't gotten bored yet. Deb is happiest when she's hunkered down writing and designing resumes that are data-rich and story-driven. While her forte is the written word, her passion is resume design. She loves weaving those 2 elements together to tell her clients' stories. Deborah is a certified executive resume master and one of a handful of certified graphic resume architects worldwide. She was the winner of 6 TORI awards, and her work has been published in over a dozen resume books. Most of her clients are mid to senior leaders, but she enjoys working with people at all levels. The Lettersmith is a career service company based in Southeast Michigan. So, yay! I was like, I hadn't known to do the math before, but we were evidently of a certain age because the mid '90s was was my era as well.
Yes, yes. When we started, pre-internet,
The
yes.
whole if you had I remember the AOL disc, you know.
Yes, yes. I'll tell you a secret, my husband still uses AOL.
I still use AOL. I mean, not for
There
my
you go.
business, but I mean, I still get newsletters and things in there. It's I call it the slush fund email address. Um,
That's what he's now using it for, yeah, so that all the spam can go in there, yeah.
right. Now, when my husband became a job seeker, I was like, honey, now that you're
You
no
gotta
longer,
change that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, he still has his AOL, but he has the more current Gmail. So,
Yes, yes, exactly.
listen, if we have any viewers here with us today, I haven't seen anybody show up in the chat yet, but please jump on and say hello to Deborah. All right, let's get started. So, Deborah, we already know you started your business in the mid '90s, so we can move
Yeah,
on to our next question. So,
yes.
is there anything else you would tell us about your practice?
Just that yeah, most of my clients are mid to senior, but I like working with people at all levels. And being based in the metropolitan Detroit area, I work with a lot of people that are connected with the automotive industry, although that's not all I do, but that there are naturally a lot of clients come from our local area. So, yeah. A lot
Yeah,
of engineers, automotive engineers.
yeah. As I say, I thought you mentioned engineers on
Hmm.
when you initially were going to be my guest. Yeah, technical is not a favorite area, so it's good to be open to that. I mean, for a
Yeah,
lot of writers, it's like not many seem to love the technical.
yeah,
All
it
right.
has its challenges for sure.
Yes. Like, yes.
Yes.
You're live, Laura. Don't say anything. Just smile.
Just smile.
All right. If you're along with us today and you want to tell us anything about your business, please do so in the chat so we can get to know you. So, Deborah, I know we're talking pre mid '90s here, but it's always valuable, especially since this profession for many they're not like us who did this way back in the beginning of our lives. Many enter this industry as a second and even a third career. So I think it's always valuable to share a little bit about what did you do before you started your business?
Before that, yes. Well, actually, I held an administrative position, and then I came down with a couple of different physical conditions that were, I say labeled because I don't like to put myself in the mindset of that, but they were labeled, you know what I mean. They were labeled chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and interstitial cystitis. And for a while, I was completely disabled by the pain, the fatigue, and bedridden, really, at one point, completely bedridden.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what was going on before I started. And then one day I was reading this book by Tony Robbins. I think I told you this story. And he was talking about the importance of asking yourself empowering questions instead of unempowering questions. Because if you ask yourself an unempowering question, you're going to get an unempowering answer. So I had been asking, why did this happen to me? Why do I have not one but three conditions? Why this? Why this? And so I changed it, and I said one day, I just said, how can I make a living despite having these conditions. And I knew that that meant that I was going to have to set my own hours. Because, you know, in those days, first of all, not a lot of people worked out of their home at all in those days. I think the home business revolution was just starting, but people, you know, I had a PC at home, but a lot of people didn't even have that. And we certainly, you know, didn't have the internet. So, but I knew 9 to 5 was not going to work because I needed, my symptoms were variable and I needed to be able to control my schedule. And there was some unpredictability with that. So I had majored in English and I always had a knack for writing, according to my teachers. And I was kind of that nerd that liked writing term papers in school. And I couldn't Google the answers because that wasn't available yet. But sometimes when you ask the right questions, the right answers come. And I went to this bookstore one day because I was a nerd and that's where I like to go. And I saw this book about, it was called How to Start Your Own, I think it was called How to Start Your Own Writing and Editing Business. And I was like, yes, that's for me.
Yeah.
And the book briefly mentioned resume writing, and it said something like, you know, most people would consider this boring, but there are people that actually make a living doing this. And it had the name of another organization that I think was the only organization at the time.
Yep.
And so I originally opened my business as a writing and editing business, which is why I called it the Lettersmith. I would probably call it something more career oriented now. But at the time, I was mostly writing for businesses, and I would do things like brochures and ad copy and press releases and things like that. But as it turned out, resumes were, good thing I'm.
I think you froze up. All right, folks, we lost Deborah for a second here. She's having bad storms in her area. So we'll just give her a moment. Hopefully come back with us. I told her before the show, I'm like, well, if you lose connectivity, I'm going to just like try to talk to everybody for 5 minutes and hope you make it back. All right, I know a few people have since joined us since we got started. So if anybody wants to share any background on their businesses or what they're called, when you got started, why you got started, what services you offer, what you'd like to do, what you did before, any of the types of things we've talked about with Deborah so far, now would be a great time to bring that in and let us take up the time while she is gone with the storm. All right, we just got some viewers here today. All the things I want to say while Deborah is here, because they relate to the things she was saying. It's so interesting to be live with someone who started their business at the same time that I did and has literally similar health conditions diagnosed at the same time and made decisions on the same reasonings. It's really interesting that we're all driven to be self-employed for a variety of reasons. I was already self-employed when my health issues started, and I have been forever grateful that I pushed myself so hard in those early years to get set up, established, and successful so that when my health issues started, I had a practice that I could vary my hours as I needed. And I want to think when my condition, because I have IC just like Deborah does, it's a nasty condition and it kind of makes you not want to leave your house. When it came out of what I would call a semi-remission in 2004, I was probably one of the first people I know who started being a completely virtual. I mean, I worked from home, but up until then, I was running my private practice, seeing job seekers in my home. They would just, I wouldn't overbook, and um, because even back then, a office rent had become the price of my mortgage. And I was like, this is ridiculous. There's no reason to keep doing this. So um, I would have people in my home. And I will tell you, that might seem crazy to think, wow, way back in the late 90s, you had people in your home and people would actually come. Well, interestingly enough, I attended another organization's event in New York City, and the presenter asked for a show of hands of how many people actually saw clients in their home. And I thought, it made sense for me to do it because I live in little Melbourne, Florida, which, yes, we have Kennedy Space Center here, um, and NASA, but it still was a sleepy beach community, no real high rises, or anything like that. And pre-internet, we had, a lot of local business unless they were referral. And even though still mostly local business. So I thought that was just unique to me living in a safe, smaller community. And literally almost everyone in the room at an event in New York City, and most of them were coming in from New York and New Jersey. They were all businesses who saw people in their home. And I was blown away because I was like, is that safe in a big city? I mean, I'm not a country mouse or anything in Florida. I'm actually from New York, but I was super shocked and surprised. So it wasn't just here locally that, in smaller, areas that people were seeing people in their homes way back then. But anyway, when my disease came out of remission, I think it was 2004. Wasn't, I mean, it hadn't been in full remission, but I'd been living the high life, and not suffering the way I had before. It got so bad that I was basically forced to work from my bathtub. And I'm sharing this with you because that's the wonderful thing about being self-employed, is that, we can always put a spin on things. And so I needed to make an income as the main source of revenue for my household, the key breadwinner, if you will. I was forced to, how am I going to figure this out? And so we put a plank over the bathtub that I could put my laptop on, and I had my portable phone, because we didn't even have cell phones yet. I had my portable phone with my headset. And I'm sure there was an echo, but now I had to convince, job seekers who didn't do much online yet. I mean, yes, we had an online world, but the average job seeker, wasn't super in tune with doing business over the internet, like is such a norm for so many today. So here I was having to convince somebody that not only were they not going to go to a physical business and they weren't going to come to my home, but that we were going to do it over the phone. And I have a tip video that I'll put in the resources, from assuming there's going to be more to this recording, and I have a replay page. I'm praying Deborah comes back here. I have a tip video on SWOT Analyze Yourself for Success in our library of free resources on CDI, which you can find careerdirectors.com under free stuff. And in that video, I talk about SWOT means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that basically just boils down to look at something that is going to make people feel fearful or concerned, or an issue they brought up in the past, like, oh, you don't have a guarantee. If you've been asked that, or others have guarantees and you don't, you need to be prepared to have looked at what's the weaknesses of that, what's the threats of that, what's the opportunities of that. So how can I spin that as a win? of not having a guarantee. So I had to spin, how is it that we're going to do something over the phone when nobody did these personal services that way? So 2004, my script, and if you find yourself, I mean, I think now the phone is very normal. That's what most resume writers and some coaches do. And the rest are typically doing things like Zoom where they're actually face to face. So it's the norm. But like I had to spin it, and don't know this is super applicable, but at least it's applicable from the thinking of how do you spin things to put your best foot forward and showcase your business so that you get business. So I would, somebody would contact me about, how did it work? What did it cost? And if you've seen any of my CDI sales resources, I don't like to sell. I don't like to talk about money. I actually like to show amounts now, but back then I still had to talk about it. Anyway, I would explain to them that, I have the most amazing process that my clients love because they get to be completely at ease, working from the comfort of their own home and not having to lug a bunch of stuff to my office. We actually do this all virtually, over the phone. And then I would explain it. So see how I was all excited and all the positive of the comfort of your own home, and you don't have to gather and lug stuff to me for your resume writing interview. So I was positioning it to be, this new groovy thing of virtual. And that worked really well. I think I lost once I discovered it worked, even when my symptoms were back under control, why start seeing people in person when everybody was willing to do it by phone, right? So I continued to do it by phone going forward. And that became, again, the norm for most people in our industry not to do face-to-face, or if they did, to meet at a Starbucks. But I probably lost in all the time I did virtual in those early years when it was an unknown thing to people. I probably only lost 2 people. And they were older people who just couldn't wrap their heads around it. But otherwise, people were thrilled. So I'm not trying to give a long example here. Hi, Joan. I'm so glad you're with me. I think you were probably here when my guest lost power, and I'm hoping Deb's going to make it back. If you have any questions, anything you want me to talk about to fill some time, I'm going to give her 5 more minutes. So spinning things. Another example of this, I talked about the guarantees, and this came up with one of my last guests, Sandra Allison, who talked about how she doesn't have a guarantee, and I talked about how I didn't have a guarantee, and how I had to think fast on my feet. And I think that years of being an interview coach was the only thing that lets me think so fast on my feet of how do I spin things from a positive standpoint. If you've ever coached anyone on job interviewing, then you know that when you get asked something, and I can tell you this too because it's going to happen to you as a business owner, entrepreneur, when you get asked something that you're not sure how to answer, the best way to buy yourself time is to ask for more information. You can also ask them, you can repeat the question back, you can ask them to repeat the question, but often if you're unclear or you're thinking about it, you can ask for more information. So, this whole SWOT, analyze yourself for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And how do I answer, no, I don't have a guarantee. How am I going to compete against people with a guarantee? I asked, no, I've actually never been asked if I have a guarantee before, because my clients are, we have such great testimonials and success stories from all of them. What kind of guarantee were you looking for? So just like in negotiation, where when they say, well, what are you looking for? And we tell our clients to say, I'm negotiable. What do you have allotted for the position? I'm fishing for information. And then when I found out a rewrite for free guarantee, I was able to SWOT that thing and very quickly think on my feet and say something completely honest. I'm gonna be clear when I'm telling you to, spin something. You're spinning from an honest marketing perspective. And mine was that I would never think of having a rewrite for free guarantee if it doesn't work, because I would never and have never produced a resume that didn't work when it was used appropriately. And by appropriately, I mean, if we create it for this target and you go apply for a different target, that's, a whole other ball of wax. But it works. So I was able to say, that's an interesting guarantee. I What I am hearing with a guarantee like that is someone who doesn't know how to do it right the first time, and therefore is giving themselves an out that is falsely building your confidence, because you're thinking, oh, if it doesn't work, then we'll redo it. Whereas I have laid out for you in our consultation today a systematic process of how I interview you, perform research, and craft the document, ABC, targeting, working for the three audiences, so that this resume is going to work right the first time. Now, certainly, so if I had that guarantee, it would basically be saying that I'm just shooting in the dark and hoping the second time I'm going to get it right. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then I reiterate about my client successes and how, certainly over the years, I've had a handful of clients come back thinking their resume wasn't working. In every one of those cases, they were clients who didn't opt for the second part of my services, which was the job search strategy and interviewing. And honestly, in every one of those cases, it came down to their job search methodology, or how they were using the resume for a target we hadn't discussed without targeting the resume. And once we got them on track, they became success stories too. So certainly, if you were to have issues, I'd want you to come back to me. However, I haven't seen it be the resume, so I haven't guaranteed this, because honestly, once I give it to you, I have no control over how you'll use it or whether you'll use it, especially if you don't opt to go through my job search strategy. So honestly, I actually get to point out again how valuable the other coaching parts of my business were at the same time. I've also had to spin this, another SWOT angle that comes up for people. I've had to spin it around, well, I see that you do all kinds of resumes and don't specialize in my industry. I think this has come more from technical people in the past than it's come from other types of professions. And my spin on that, and once you've been asked something you don't know how to answer, even if it boggles you the first time and you stumble through it, this should be an aha moment for you to go create a winning answer to that. Consider that in the Certified Employment Interview Consultant course, I talk about Latin root questions. That's my cheeky way of talking about the fact that there are common interview questions that employers tend to ask, or versions of them. So, if you learn how to sell yourself fluently and effectively on "tell me about yourself," then you should be able to answer hybrids of that question of "tell me about a strength you have," "tell me why you feel your value added." Those are all hybrids of "tell me about yourself" in a selling way. So when somebody gets asked something they don't know how to answer on the spot, do your best, and then you go prepare. And again, I can think really fast on my feet simply because I've spent years running placement programs and teaching people how to interview, who expected me to be able to just roll off an answer to their unique situation of how they'd answer an interview question immediately. So it's a skill. I wasn't born with it, but I built it. But we can prepare. So when somebody would ask me that question about, well, you don't specialize in what I do, and I would say, I don't specialize in what I do, but my clients in what you do, but my clients from your industry have been extremely successful because of the process I use. And not all resume writers worked the way I did, but I would have explained to my client in the consultation describing how I worked that research was a key part of what I did, not because I didn't think I knew about their field or hadn't worked with anyone in it, but because when you do something as your profession, you are very apt to take things for granted about it. And I had found over the years that job seekers wouldn't tell me very important parts of their expertise. And so it behooved me to look up descriptions of their target jobs if they were different from the job they were currently holding. And if not, looking up job descriptions like their current job, because then I could fill in blanks that they might take for granted. So it added confidence to me. It allowed me to justify a higher price. And it also removed any bias of them being blinded to things that they knew and took for granted. And me, I would say, you know what? I work with, here we are, Kennedy Space Center, NASA. I work with engineers all the time, especially aeronautic and aviation engineers. I'm like, but I feel like the closer you are to something, the easier it is to take for granted. So even in professions where I have extensive experience and results, I do that work. I have tons of more resumes in this one resume book than anyone else. I think it's, well, America's, I don't want to overstep which book it was, but anyway, I would use that sometimes as an example in referencing the whole, yes, I have experience, look how many finance resumes I have in this particular book, and look at the successes. So again, it's just spinning, because I was proud to be a generalist who had a specific process that allowed me to very effectively hone in on my clients' results. So I think that today, a business that does specialize has some benefits, because, as you hear me keep saying, if you're trying to speak to everyone, you often get heard by no one. It's like standing on the side of the road going, I write resumes. I mean, how many people are going to need that, get excited by that? Okay, we could buff it up and be like, I write resumes that get jobs. But when you start talking to a specific population, that's a certain person hearing you. So say, like, I write, resumes for pharmaceutical sales professionals, or I write resumes for medical professionals, or something specific. It doesn't even mean it's the only industry you serve. I've coached one-on-one clients in the consulting part of CDI to have different landing pages that they drove people to, where they could speak specifically to that population. So their normal front end, that was probably what their LinkedIn was hooked to if they were trying to keep their options opened, that would appear, that was their home page. But there were other landing pages that spoke specifically to these audiences so that they could have niches. Because when you do have niches, you're getting past all the noise. Because right now, and I know I'm a broken record on this, but right now on LinkedIn, do a search, do an advanced search, and you'll find that there's like 1.5 million people claiming to be professional resume writers right now. So how are you going to stand out against that, posting and doing whatnot? It's overwhelming to think that you're going to have the ability to easily stand out if you're just trying to talk to everyone. But if you know specifically who you're talking to, are you talking to, in other words, pick an audience, a more specific, not a micro audience, because if you get too tiny, you don't have enough people to serve. I had a one-on-one client one time who I was like, you need to broaden your interests, because you've taken this all the way down to a specific sex, a specific origin, and a specific specialty. And I actually, prior to working with the person, I did the research, and there were only like a few 100,000 people who fit that niche nationwide, if we're thinking just in the US. And I'm like, that's not a very successful niche to sustain your business indefinitely. I would rather see you do like all medical and pharmaceutical device salespeople, or be the resume expert for healthcare resumes, even bigger. That's a huge, 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 huge. But when you look around, how many people are specializing? When you know who you're talking to, you know what professional associations to go talk to in order to get, webinars and other presentations, to write articles for their association magazine, to talk at their local chapter, to speak at their conference. You know what groups they hang out on in LinkedIn. You can personalize hashtags to that audience. It just becomes easier. And I know people worry, well, all this other people are going to see it. There's so much noise online that your message can just so easily get lost if you don't choose to do something specialized. So think about that. Think about keeping that generalist. I know I just totally went sideways from the whole SWOT analyze yourself, but it's an important thing to think about, that I was able to be a generalist in the years I had my business. And I'm sure with the referral base I built up, and then the contracts I landed, I don't know, was I really a generalist? By the time I ended, I wasn't necessarily even really a generalist. I just happened to be seen as a specialist for those 40 plus professional associations I was the expert for. So if you were in the Project Management Institute and you went to their career center, you saw a Competitive Edge Career Service, my company, was the recommended resume service, and you could even buy services right from PMI's site. Same with the American Marketing Association, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, Veterinarians Association. I mean, all these different organizations, I was their niche expert. So you can actually be a niche expert for a lot. It just takes more time and effort. And we want to focus in on the thing that's going to move the needle for us the most right now. And that's rarely, trying to divide ourselves multiple places. So I would say pick a bountiful audience and choose to focus on them and build that up. LinkedIn newsletters are a great way to do this, because you can have up to 5 newsletters on your personal, on your business page. You can be talking, if you're scared to niche, you can be talking general in your feed, but pick a industry specific newsletter or level specific, and be really careful because there's lots of competition for executive. When I say level specific, I think there's still room for things like career change, second careers, new graduates. There are very few who serve new graduates well. I know there are some new graduate specialists. Some are awesome, but I see a lot of people who, have said to me in passing over the years how I just love new graduates. They're so easy because they have nothing to say. And that's not, in my world, a new graduate resume is the most complicated resume you will ever write. And that is because to do them the service they need to be done, you need to explore everything they have done. That means looking at jobs and not just putting down, I was a bagger at the grocery store, or helped customers to their car. No, you're looking to spin it. You're looking to do what I call crossing the bridge with language that will appeal to the target audience. So you have to talk about it in a different way. You're looking at helping them transition. So it's not that common to get a job in your field of training, your degree field, but almost all my clients did. And that was because I was helping them not just be a degree where the average employer, probably not having gotten a job in their area of training, was thinking, well, yeah, they got a degree and there's nothing else on there, keywords, knowledge, anything in your typical traditional new graduate resume. All their jobs are unrelated. No, I didn't learn anything in my degree or use it either, so I'm not going to hire this person with no experience. To do that new graduate service, you have to literally talk to them, and you could use a questionnaire, but I think it'd be actually harder. My new graduates, we looked at every single one of their core classes. What did you learn? I always wanted to know, though, if you hated this class and wanted nothing to do with this subject, then we weren't going to talk about it at all. But otherwise, I wanted to know, I wanted to get the description from the course catalog. I wanted them, if they still had their textbooks, to look back at the detailed table of contents. I wanted them to pull any papers they'd written, any projects they'd done, and be prepared to talk to me about it, because I wanted to know, what did you learn? Were there any projects, papers, case studies? Tell me about them. Real employers involved with those. What did you like? And we would explore their core courses in that way. And then we would look at their jobs and their internships and their volunteer work and their sports and their leadership and sports and school activities, because I was looking to literally spin, again, here comes that SWOT analyzing, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, so that I could put together what made them stand out for hopefully a target they had. So how do you put keywords into a new graduate resume? You have to be very creative. And I used this for over a decade successfully as a placement director with a private business school that later became a private university during the 11 years I was there. I've used this with people changing careers, and I've used this with new graduates. I teach it still today. It's in Resumes for Dummies, and that is, instead of having key areas of expertise on your 2 to 3 column list of expertise, I would instead have, what do you call it? Key areas of knowledge, skills, and training, or knowledge, skills, and training include : and that magical wording of knowledge, skills, and training allows you to be able to put in keywords of things that they have book experience from and project experience from, but not necessarily job experience from. And then it's a little bit harder today with how resumes are read, and I have to encourage new grads to do networking in their job search and have a traditional resume with a timeline on it. But I believe that experience doesn't have to be paid, and so it can include things like projects you did in school, as long as you're being completely forthright. Like, I have put under a reverse chronological timeline before: full-time mechanical engineering student - Florida Institute of Technology, and the dates, and then gone on to talk about projects in a microelectronics, I wouldn't say that, but in microelectronics course would be the end of a bullet talking about a project, or something they did in an internship. I would always make sure it was very, very clear where those things were taking place, that they were classes and whatnot. And it works, because experience is experience, whether you're paid for it or not. And a lot of helping a job seeker be successful is helping them to pivot from seeing themselves as, I just took a bunch of courses, but I've never done it before, to taking them to realizing that they have experience. They just now have to apply it to a job and convince somebody to pay them for it. So that's, now we're way out on the SWOT analyzing strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats into niching. Gosh, I can just spin and keep talking forever. I did hear from our guest, Deborah, at 4:05, about 25 minutes ago. I saw that she, I didn't see it that long ago because I was on a roll here sharing stuff with you, but they have lost total power and internet. And I think she messaged me from her phone that she was so sorry, but she's not coming back. So we will still, I'm not really sure what's going to happen from here, except for that, unless anyone has any questions on things I've shared so far about this whole SWOT analyzing yourself and preparing for the unexpected questions for interviews or promoting your business or the whole new graduate resumes. I'm glad to answer those questions now. I'll give you a chance to throw anything in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up and I'll tell you what's coming next week. Just give you guys a moment. Actually, I will go ahead and I will just share what's coming next week. We'll have to probably work Deborah back in, although I believe I already have all her social media tips scheduled. So we'll probably let those run, and I don't know. I'll see how soon she and I can jump back on to do another live stream. Okay, so let's see. What is next week? Next week, I have another great guest coming. And that is Cliff Flamer. So Cliff owns Brightside Resumes. And I first got to know Cliff in 2008 when CDI hosted the World's Best Resume Writer competition. And it's so interesting, all these people are coming up just after we opened the TORI Awards for 2024, the TORI Toast of the Resume Industry Resume Writing Awards for their 24th season. So I've suddenly got guests who are resume writing award winners popping up. But anyway, the World's Best Resume Writer competition, we only so far have held that in 2008. People love the TORIs. It's kind of hard to have two resume competitions in 1 year. And that was a very unique competition because you didn't just pick the category and submit your best work. No, you had to actually take the client interviewed Word document that we had prepared for a single candidate, and you had to create the best resume possible from that information. So everybody, it wasn't apples versus oranges on who has the best executive candidate or sales candidate. It was everybody has the same information to start from. Now let's see what you can do. And also our judge system was completely different in that we had our judge panel was recruiters and HR directors. So we had some pretty interesting folks who were on that panel of judges who narrowed it down to 3 and then ranked those 3 first, second, and third according to their opinion. And we all know there's always some interesting controversy between what recruiters like and what employers like. And, CDI has done surveys and shared like not even recruiters agree with each other on what they like and all the surveys that we've done over the years. So we were like, let's also take these top 3 that they picked and let's do a public vote. So we put out a public vote by email and on social media asking anyone to vote on how they would rank these 3 first, second, and third. So Cliff was, and I should say before I tell you about Cliff's results is that interestingly enough, way back then, recruiters and HR directors picked resumes with graphs and color in them as their top 3. So it's interesting when you hear like, oh no, people only like old school resumes. It's so not true. Out of all the entries, it was more new school that got picked by recruiters and HR directors. Anyway, so Cliff, who's my guest next week, he took second place in the professional votes from recruiters and HR directors, and he took first place in the public votes. And in the years since, Cliff has also been a TORI winner and a TORI judge. So he has a lot of wisdom to share on the resume front. He also says that on a scale of 1 to 10, he ranks CDI as a 10 in how much our resources and support have played in his success. Even though already very successful, Cliff has also been a member of CDI's Inner Circle, our Career Industry Accelerator Club, since 2018. Prior to starting his business, Cliff was a technical recruiter in Silicon Valley. He currently provides services which include resume writing, LinkedIn profiles, interview prep, job search strategy, and career coaching. And on top of all of that, Cliff says, and this is another reason you'll want to tune in next week, that probably his biggest claim to fame is that he hasn't had to sell his services in over a decade. Yet, as I have seen, he has a very successful practice. He's leveraging several unique strategies to achieve that with credentials, a client self-assessment, a slideshow, and a pop-up window that I will let him tell you more about next week. So join me and Cliff and I next Wednesday at 3:45 Eastern. Again, LinkedIn, CDI's LinkedIn, CDI's YouTube channel, and our Facebook page. And real quick, in case I have anyone who's not a CDI member here with me today, I would definitely recommend that you head over to CDI's site, careerdirectors.com/free stuff, or just go to careerdirectors.com and click on free stuff, and you will find a number of resources right there for you. You can join our community, which is a fabulous supportive place to get answers, support, accountability. There are so many deep dive lessons. We even have a testimonial from a now member who at the time says he built a six-figure practice just by using our free resources. So if it's that good on the outside, imagine what it's like on the inside with our done for you white labeled job seeker tip sheets that you can give away or sell, with our best practice tip sheets, with our I think we're probably at 100 on demand deep dive tutorials. All of our resume writing ones are produced by former TORI award winners, which is, I think the best of the best for giving you advice on resume writing. There are so many gems in the CDI membership, but you can get a taste test of several of them in the free section of our site. But look, there's a lot there. We give a lot of value away. So be sure to take the quiz that is on the top of our website and also on the free stuff page to figure out the number one thing that's blocking you from six-figure success. Not only is it going to answer that question for you, but one of the reasons I really love it is that it will take the lessons and it will tell you which ones to focus on based on your number one blocker to success. So do that, and while you're on the CDI site, please head over to the join page and join our wait list. That way you can also receive CDI emails, get replays of events like this, find out what's coming. Like for instance, as I mentioned, and the full part of my subject last week was the TORI Awards, the 2024 24th year of the Toast of the Resume Industry Resume Writing Awards. One of the key ways I built my business, and so many other, oh, my hair's a mess. So many other resume writers have as well. Special bonus I will just mention, and I think I have a link here too that I can share to the TORIs. Okay, so if you want to go to learn more about the TORIs, it's a mouthful of a URL, but there it is, careerdirectors.com/TORI, TORI -resume -writing -competition / But on that page, we've got all kinds of free lessons from former winners. These are open to everyone, not just members. Former winners, these are Q&As, and former judges as well, who are all usually former TORI winners too, or have multiple certifications and have held roles as CDI certification committee members. Information on the competition, but also something I'm really excited about this year, which is a bonus I'm going to be offering. I believe in the TORIs because they really are the number one lowest cost, highest ROI way to grow a resume writing practice very quickly. And you'll see tons of testimonials on the page about that. But what I love is this bonus I've come up with, which is, hey, I want you to enter. And if one category is $40, but a lot of our repeat winners, they go all in because they know more chances. You never know what category is going to have less people, more opportunity to succeed and stand out and be a 6X TORI winner or whatnot, like Deborah Schuster, who's a 6X TORI winner. She was telling us before the storm knocked her out. Anyway, I have a special just through April that if you buy all 10 categories of the TORIs, which brings it down to $25 a category, $250, you're going to get a ticket to a private event I'm holding on Wednesday, June 5th, where you'll be able to submit a resume. It could be one that you submitted in the past and didn't get nominated. It could be one you're thinking about entering now. But you can submit that, and just for the people who qualify for this bonus, I'll be doing this private event. This is something that I haven't done in many years, and when I did it in the past, I charged $500 a person to be in this session. But you'll get feedback live, and this is pretty invaluable. Pretty much everyone who's ever attempted the TORI after I mentored them, either one-on-one or in the group, has gone on to succeed with at least nominations and usually wins. You have to take my advice. If you take my advice and you do what I'm saying, it's almost a shoo-in. And not because I have anything to do with judging, because I don't even look at the TORIs. It's usually a separate person altogether. Like it's been Gail Howard for several years. Before that, it was Audrey Prenzel. Before that, it was Robin Schlinger. I can't think further. I thought of the person's first name, but I can't think of their last name. They left the industry over a decade ago, who was before that. But anyway, it's just that I've been looking at what's been winning the TORIs for 24 years now, and I have resume awards myself. I know what you're up against. I know what works. I know the little things. After our Career Industry Accelerator Club meeting earlier today, I was on with a member who's done some things for CDI. So when I mentioned the TORIs, and this person was like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't even get nominated last year. I'm like, all right, I'm going to pull up one of your resumes. And it's hard when I'm not looking at what actually won. But within a few minutes, she was like, oh my gosh, my mind is completely blown, because I asked the person, I'm like, did you look at the winners? And they were like, yeah, I did. But I think mine are just as good. And literally after just 10 minutes of pointing things out on this really good resume the person did, but things I saw about wording and intros and layout things, they were like, my mind is completely blown. It's like a whole new world just opened up for me on what to do with resumes. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. And I'm not saying that to be like, ooh, look at me. This is what I've been teaching for over 30 years now, I think, is in total how long I've been running resume writing workshops for job seekers and resume writers. And I won my first resume award in the 90s, so for most visually distinctive resume. So I'm super excited about this opportunity. And I mean, it's like a no-brainer, because you spend $250 and you get 10 TORI entries, and then you get this $500 value workshop with me, workshop review session, whatever you want to call it, where I'll be giving real feedback to those who submit a resume. So check that out. The details of it are on this TORI page. The TORI's registration are currently open, but that offer is only on the table through the end of April. And June 5th still gives you plenty of time, because entries for the TORIs aren't even due until I think August 5th or something like that. We give you generous time because we know everybody waits till the last minute to register. All right, with that, I have told you about my next guest, and I have told you about the wonderful opportunities in the TORIs, and we will just go on from there. And I hope to see you next week, right here on the same place, LinkedIn, Facebook group, and YouTube channel, for my next guest, Cliff Flamer. So until then, thank you, and I hope you'll be flying higher, and that I'll see you in CDI.